8. I-400 submarines. In August 2013, a Japanese submarine from World War II, which had been seized and deliberately sunk by US forces, was uncovered. Located off the shores of Oahu, one of the Hawaiian Islands, the large submarine had been in this location ever since it was submerged in 1946. The missing I-400, which had eluded discovery, was located by researchers from the Hawaii Undersea Research Laboratory, HURL. HURL, based at the University of Hawaii at Manoa in Honolulu, successfully pinpointed the submarine off the southwest coast of Oahu, resting at a depth of over 2,300 feet beneath the ocean's surface. This find was absolutely remarkable because the I-400 was the largest submarine in operation during World War II. Measuring in at around the size of a football field, this mega submarine was used like an underwater aircraft carrier. It would carry 3 floatplane bombers on board in a watertight hangar and would rapidly rise to the surface to deploy them before sinking back beneath the waves in order to avoid detection. It was the first submarine ever to do so, changing the game when it came to how submarines were used in warfare. With an impressive range of 37,500 miles, the colossal I-400 submarines possessed the ability to complete 1.5 circumnavigations of the globe without having to be refueled. This meant it could strike anywhere and at any time. Initially, the Japanese Navy intended to create a large amount of I-400 submarines to use in the offensive against the US. However, by the time the end of the war rolled around, they'd only been able to construct 3 of them. The I-400 was one of 5 Japanese submarines captured by the US forces. According to officials from HURL, the submarines were taken to Pearl Harbor for examination but were deliberately sunk off the coast of Oahu in 1946. The decision to scuttle the submarines was made in response to the Soviet Union's request for access to the vessels, as per their rights in the treaty signed at the end of World War II. The US Navy intentionally sank the submarines to prevent the advanced technology from falling into Soviet hands during the early days of the Cold War. 7. The tanks of Lake Hamana. The Type 4 Chi-To was a medium tank designed by the Imperial Japanese Army (IJA) during World War II. It was developed in response to the threat of American tanks that were expected to be deployed in the Pacific Theater and was intended to replace the earlier Type 97 Chi-Ha tank. However, due to various technical and logistical issues, only a few prototypes were ever produced, and the Type 4 Chi-To never saw active service. This newer tank was designed to be a heavily armored weapon. It was equipped with a 75mm Type 5 gun, which was capable of penetrating the armor of most enemy tanks at the time. The tank also featured a sloped front hull and turret, which provided additional protection against enemy fire. The Type 4 Chi-To could accommodate a crew of 5, including a commander, gunner, loader, driver, and radio operator. It was powered by a Mitsubishi 12-cylinder diesel engine, which provided a top speed of around 28 km per hour. To avoid the tanks falling into enemy hands, the 2 Chi-To tank prototypes were driven into Lake Hamana in Japan before the country surrendered and was occupied by US forces. One of the 2 tanks was recovered by the US, but the other remained at the bottom of the lake. In 2013, however, an effort was made to try and recover the last remaining tank from the bottom of Lake Hamana. But despite the best efforts of the team involved, the tank wasn't able to be brought to the surface. 6. Messerschmitt Me-262. In October 2014, workers from the Deelen Air Base Museum discovered a Messerschmitt Me-262 in a field on a farm near the city of Arnhem in the Netherlands. They were excavating the site of a bomb crater, which was often filled with various junk and debris. Normally, these bomb craters yield fascinating treasures for historians, but none of them expected to see an entire plane, let alone an Me-262. It's believed that the plane had been shot down in September of 1944 near the village of Eldon and had remained there ever since. The aircraft's pilot, Unteroffizier Herbert Schauder, unfortunately was killed in the aircraft. Interestingly, at the time of the incident, the Germans removed the wreckage and hid the plane in a bomb crater in Deelen so it wouldn't be spotted. The Me-262 is remarkable because it's one of the first jet-engined fighter planes. There aren't many of these aircraft left in the world, so enthusiasts were pretty excited about the discovery. According to warbirdnews.com, the plane that was found might even be the first to come off the production line. The museum workers managed to excavate large sections of the aircraft, including the nose, one wing, the engine and two 30mm cannons, both of which were mostly intact. Since the type of aircraft was a tightly guarded secret due to the jet engine technology, it makes sense that the wreckage wouldn't have been left at the crash site. Instead, it was taken back to the airfield at Deelen, which was under Luftwaffe control at the time. There, they buried the wreckage out of sight on secure ground. 5. Graf Zeppelin. Graf Zeppelin was the only aircraft carrier ever built by Germany. Its construction started on December 28, 1936 in Kiel, but unfortunately, work was stopped in 1943 by order of Adolf Hitler. Even though the construction was over 90% complete, and the effectiveness of aircraft carriers had been demonstrated by other nations in the conflict, all large German units were withdrawn after the Battle of the Barents Sea. The carrier was then towed to Szczecin, where any of the vessel's useful equipment was dismantled. And in the end, the Graf Zeppelin's construction was never finished. At the beginning of 1945, with the Red Army advancing, the carrier was partially sunk and shelled by artillery. Later, in the summer of that same year, the partially repaired ship was incorporated into the USSR Navy. However, it wasn't eligible for renovation, so in 1947 it was used as a target ship and was subsequently sunk in the Baltic Sea. Back in 2006 on July 12th, the RV St. Barbara, a research vessel belonging to the Polish oil company Petro-Baltic, discovered a massive wreck that was 869 feet long. Due to the wreck's size and location, 34 miles north of Władysławowo, everyone thought it was Graf Zeppelin. The wreckage was located at a depth of over 260 feet below the surface. The Polish Navy then carried out a 2-day survey of the wreckage to confirm its identity. They used remote-controlled underwater robots, and their findings led them to be 99% certain that it was Graf Zeppelin. Although it never saw active service, Graf Zeppelin has been immortalized in collectible form through various model companies and video games. What would you do if you discovered a groundbreaking piece of World War II history? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. 4. The Musashi. The Musashi was one of the largest battleships ever built. Constructed in 1938, Musashi and her sister ship the Yamato were behemoths of the sea, measuring 862 feet long. It was sunk during the Battle of Lake Gulf in October 1944 after continued assault by US airplanes. The Musashi didn't go down without a fight though. The vessel used its massive 18-inch anti-aircraft guns to shoot the surface of the water, creating deadly geysers that the attacking planes had to avoid. For pilots who were unfortunate enough to fly into these water columns, the force they produced was compared to flying into a mountain. After taking hits from 20 torpedoes and 17 bombs, the Musashi finally met her end, sinking beneath the waves and taking the lives of 1,000 men. For decades, the location of the Musashi's wreck remained a mystery, but in 2015, a team of researchers led by Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen discovered the remains of the ship off the coast of the Philippines in the Sibuyan Sea. Allen's team used advanced technology, including side-scan sonar and an autonomous underwater vessel, AUV, to locate the wreckage. The Musashi was found at a depth of about 3,280 feet below the surface. There are currently no plans to raise the Musashi from the seabed, but at least we now know the location of one of the largest battleships ever to grace the seas. 3. P-40 Kittyhawk in the desert. The P-40 Kittyhawk was a single-seat fighter aircraft that was used by the Allied forces during World War II. It was designed and produced by the American company Curtiss-Wright Corporation and was widely used by most Allied air forces throughout the war. The Kittyhawk was known for its ruggedness and durability, which made it popular among pilots, particularly in the harsh conditions of the desert theaters of war. The aircraft was powered by a single Allison V1710 engine, which gave it a top speed of around 360 miles per hour and a range of about 750 miles. In 2012, a P-40 Kittyhawk was discovered in the Sahara Desert in Egypt by a Polish survey team. The aircraft had been missing since it crashed in June 1942 during a mission to support ground troops in the Western Desert Campaign. The Kittyhawk was being piloted by Dennis Copping, who was flying in formation with another plane. The two-ship formation had departed from the landing ground at Bir el Bahira and were heading to a recovery and service unit at Wadi Natruna in Egypt. Copping's squadron was retreating from the advancing German Afrika Corps, and the pilot had to fly with the aircraft's undercarriage fixed down due to damage sustained during a hard landing the day before. On the flight, his wingman in the other plane noted accurate flak, but Copping failed to respond by radio or hand signals to correct his heading. And eventually, he flew off course and was never seen again. The discovery of the Kittyhawk was made possible through the use of high-resolution satellite imagery and advanced computer software. The team was able to identify the location of the aircraft's crash site and then traveled to the area to investigate further. The Kittyhawk was found in remarkably good condition, despite having been buried in the sand for over 70 years. The cockpit was intact and many of the plane's features were still recognizable. The propeller, however, showed the force of the impact, and it was bent and buckled from the high-speed crash. Copping's parachute was found next to the plane, with the team believing that he'd used it as a makeshift shelter to shield himself from the merciless desert sun. Bones found a small distance away seemed to indicate that although Copping survived the crash, the conditions in which he found himself dealt the final blow. 2. Austria's secret Nazi bunker. In 2014, filmmakers in Austria uncovered what they believed to be an underground bunker created by the Nazis to build and test nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, WMDs. The team, led by Austrian documentary maker Andreas Sulzer, made the significant discovery near the town of St. Georgen an der Gusen. They uncovered an expansive weapons facility that Sulzer described as likely the biggest secret weapons production facility of the Third Reich. Spanning 75 acres, this industrial complex was situated in proximity to another underground factory called the B8 Bergkristall facility. It was at this facility that the Messerschmitt Me-262, the world's first operational jet-powered fighter, was manufactured in the final stages of World War II. Using reports from the time, as well as declassified information, Sulzer and his team were able to locate the entrance to the underground facility and dig down to the entrance which had been sealed by the Germans upon their retreat. Radiation levels in the area around the bunker were also high, helping them to not only find the bunker, but reasonably hypothesize that it had been used for nuclear weapons testing. When it comes to who would have worked in these underground weapons factories, the answer's quite unfortunate. Workers were picked from the nearby Mauthausen-Gusen concentration camp, and over 32,000 of them are presumed to have died due to the facility's conditions. Additionally, skilled workers were selected from various concentration camps throughout Europe, notably chemists, physicists, and others with the necessary skills to advance the Nazis' weapon projects. The person in charge of the nuclear facility was SS General Hans Kammler, who had also been responsible for creating the V-2 long-distance rocket used against London during the war. Kammler had also signed off on the gas chambers used at Auschwitz. Fascination still remains about Kammler, not because of his heinous history, but because of what actually happened to him after the war, something which Sulzer wants to find the answers to. The reason for this is that it's highly speculated that Kammler didn't end his own life as is claimed, but instead was secretly recruited by the US to work as part of Operation Paperclip. This operation recruited over 1,500 scientists from Nazi Germany to work on American technologies, whose knowledge and expertise they didn't want falling into Russian hands. 1. An unexpected collection. People can store some crazy things in their basements. But one thing the German authorities weren't expecting to find in an old man's basement was a World War II Panther tank. But that's exactly what happened in 2015. Alongside the tank, which was still in perfect condition, they found a large amount of ammunition. A collection of Nazi memorabilia was also discovered, including items like a bust of Hitler, mannequins dressed in Nazi uniforms, swastika pendants, lamp shaped like SS runes, and a statue created by Arno Brecker, Hitler's favorite sculptor. The statue was previously positioned outside Hitler's chancellery in Berlin, and it depicts a naked warrior holding a sword in its extended hand. The collection of Nazi memorabilia was so large that it took the army 9 hours to remove it all safely. Suspicions about the tank had first been raised in 1978, when, during a heavy winter, it was used as a snowplow by the owner. But it would be decades later before his haul would finally be discovered. After a court battle, it was decided that the old man, now 84, would face a $293,000 fine. The man was then asked to donate or sell the tank and other memorabilia, which also included an anti-aircraft cannon, to a museum or collector within 2 years. Which one of these World War II discoveries fascinated you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!